All right, I think we're live. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 584, Space and Technology. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Doc in the description, read the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. And when you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. We're going to get right into it. All right, first item on the docket is from TechCrunch.com. Autonomous driving startup turns its AI expertise to space for automated satellite operation. Hungarian autonomous driving startup Almotive is leveraging its technology to address a different industry and growing need: autonomous satellite operation. Almotive is teaming up with C3S, a supplier of satellite and space-based technologies, to develop a hardware platform for performing AI operations of onboard satellites. Almotive's AI-aware neural network accelerator will be optimized by C3S for use on satellites, which have a set of operating conditions that in many ways resembles those onboard cars on the road, but with more stringent requirements in terms of power management and environmental operating hazards. The goal of the team up is to have Almotive's technology working on satellites that are actually operational on orbit by second half of next year. The projected applications on board neural network acceleration extend to a number of different functions according to the companies, including telecommunications, Earth imaging and observation, autonomously docking satellites with other spacecraft, deep space, mining, and more. While it's true that most satellites operate essentially in an automated fashion already, meaning they are not generally manually flown at every given moment, true neural network-based onboard AI smarts would provide them with much more autonomy when it comes to performing tasks, like imaging a specific area or looking for specific markers in ground or space-based targets. Also, Almotive and C3S believe that local processing of data has the potential to be a significant game changer when it comes to the satellite business. Currently, most of the processing of data collected by satellites is done after the raw information is transmitted to the ground stations. That can actually result in a lot of lag time between data collection and delivery of processed data to customers. particularly when the satellite operator or another go-between is acting as the processor on behalf of the client rather than just delivering raw info. Motor's tech could mean that processing happens locally on the satellite where the information is captured. There's been a big shift toward this kind of computing at the edge in the ground-based IoT world, and it only makes sense to replicate it in space for many of the same reasons, including that it reduces time to delivery, meaning more responsive service paying customers. Yeah, we talked about this many times before. Edge-based computing and tiny AI and doing all the processing in the closer to where the device is, and in space, obviously you have a extremely long lag time. So it makes a lot of sense to put satellites up there just for edge computing purposes. Makes a lot of sense because it's cold up there too, so you can run, the best of the best, CPUs and GPUs and GPUs and things of that nature up in space and not have to worry about cooling. So you can basically put an edge-based satellite. I mean, imagine that, right? Edge-based computing is already in full swing now, but the idea of putting an edge-based satellite into space with all the latest technology to do all the processing up there before even sending it down. Basically, they can compress. Once the edge-based satellite does all the work, they can compress the final results and just push it down. They don't have to worry about whether or not, when it makes it, because it's already been processed. Okay, it's already been processed in space. So just send it down. When it gets there, it gets there. It may take some time, depending on how far up they are, but when it gets there, it already been done. All the processing has been done. I always thought that they should have done this with Mars and the moon lander missions, because there should be a system up there, whether it's a lunar lander with an edge-based computer up there, doing all the processing there before you start sending it back to Earth, before you even start sending it to other satellites for communication purposes. But I've talked about this. We talked about this many times before, that 1 in every 3 startups going forward will be a space startup, and you're seeing it happen right here. AI in space, machine learning in space, IoT in space, 5G, all of these sort of connectivity technologies happening. In space exploration. Now is the time to actually get in, because before you couldn't get in, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. Now you're talking about your next startup can be actually, you can raise $2 or $3 million and actually get into this market. I think this is a very, very viable market. All right, let me jump to the next item on the docket. All right, next item on the docket is from Tunacheki. Let's hear the clip real quick. Fair use.
In Africa. And please feel free to leave.
All right. So basically what's going on in Africa and Kenya, and for to be specific, is that they've launched the Loon internet balloon in the country, and that's covered, it's a 4G based balloon, which provides connectivity to practically the whole entire country, especially areas that are rural. And so what's happening here is that it's cheaper to run the balloons than it is to put up a tower. Towers are very expensive because it's a large piece of infrastructure that needs to be installed. And that takes time, and it has to be in the right location. It can't be where animals are, the wildlife that are protected and things like that. With the balloons, it basically they're basically floating around and dropping internet everywhere where available. And so this is the beginning of something that's going to take place over years. Although they've launched all the balloons now, I talked about edge computing in the last article in space, but edge computing on the continent of Africa is going to be really, really, really important. Okay, I also mentioned I also put Latin America in the same category as Africa as well as a continent because of the same similar makeup in colonialist history and infrastructure development. And so how do you improve on something like this? Well, you're going to need some really fast processing capabilities because, one, although it's 4G and it does have 18 megabits down and like 4 megabits up, it makes sense that the applications do a lot of the processing and things of that nature at as close as possible to the client device or the end user itself. Okay. Makes sense. And so your applications, when you design your applications, they have to be robust enough to actually function in a way that it decreases time. If you had to rely on sending all your data up and waiting for it to be processed in the cloud or at the telecom provider, that's going to take a long time, especially with these balloons floating about. Okay. This is where edge computing comes in, but I like the idea of the balloons. Okay, I think you can add on to that. And so these are areas of opportunity that I think people should be getting involved in.
What's going on, Mike?
Hey, what's going on, dude?
Chilling, man.
All right.
This is something. Hey, Nagon, what's going on, big bro?
Hey, what's going on, Complex? Hey, that balloon stuff, awesome. Great way to handle that issue. Anyway, go ahead, Complex.
I was just gonna say, what was that hurricane that hit Puerto Rico in 2018? Maria. So AT&T launched internet service drones. So similar to the balloon idea, there's just a drone. So we've seen something similar like this already deployed, basically like in a disaster area or a disaster zone to basically make internet instantly available. You just send some drones up that have the ability to basically network connectivity, and they beam it back down. Mm-hmm. This right here is the exact same thing. You're just using a balloon.
Yep.
It's a very cost-effective solution. It definitely is, as he said, having to build towers, build infrastructure, the other issues that might come in environmentally speaking. Very interesting to solve that. I didn't really think about that. So very interesting solution.
All right. Next item, I'm getting some feedback. Next item on the docket from Wired.com: 5G was going to unite the world. Instead, it's tearing us apart. Divisions over technical standards and the role of China's Huawei are jeopardizing the rollout of super fast connections. The world came together to build 5G. Now the next generation wireless technology is pulling the world apart. The latest version of the 5G technical specifications expected Friday adds features for connecting autonomous cars, intelligent factories, and Internet of Things devices to crazy fast 5G networks. The blueprints reflect a global effort to develop the technology and contribute with contributions from the more than a dozen companies from Europe, US, and Asia. And yet 5G is also pulling nations apart, with the US and China anchoring the tug of war. Tensions between Washington and Beijing over trade, human rights, the handling of COVID-19, and Chinese misinformation are escalating global divisions around the deployment of 5G. A growing number of countries are aligning with either a Western or a Chinese version of the tech. National security and commercial interests are all entangled, and it's very hard to separate them. Says Scott Walston, president of the Technology Policy Institute, a think tank. It's that word again, policy. The way 5G was created and the way it is now being deployed capture an ongoing conundrum for Western countries. How to balance healthy competition and collaboration with national interests and the rise of China. The 5G dispute centers on Huawei, arguably China's most important tech company with a dominant position in networking equipment, a big smartphone business, and increasingly sophisticated chips. The company is accused of stealing technology and of having close ties to the Chinese government that might enable cyber espionage. It has become a symbol of China's ambitions to dominate the technology through innovation as well as nefarious means. The US and some allies, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Taiwan, have banned Huawei and other Chinese telcos like ZTE from their networks. Other nations have balked at the US-led efforts to keep Huawei and other Chinese firms out of the picture. Argentina, Brazil, Russia, the Philippines, and Thailand all welcome Chinese 5G tech. A key question is how this bifurcation will affect the workings of a standard that was meant to be open and global. We risk further fragmenting the internet and the way different networks connect to each other, says Walston. Even if 5G was meant to be a truly global communication standard, the technical plans reflect shifting national strengths and resultant tensions. The 5G standards outline plans for insanely fast wireless speeds of up to 1 gigabit per second, 50 times faster than the average US broadband connection with few delays. Think playing high-end games without any lag, or robots that feed on artificial intelligence hosted in the cloud. And of course, 5G is expected to inspire innovations in businesses that could change the technology landscape by various estimates. The technology could generate several $1 trillion for the global economy over the next couple of decades. It's no surprise that every country wants a piece of the action. The technical specifications for 5G are developed by the Third Generation Partnership Project, 3GPP, a coalition of standards organizations from the US, Europe, China, Japan, India, and South Korea. The group is putting the finishing touches on version 16 of the 5G specs, which will add features that let devices hop among a wider range of the wireless spectrum, offer high precision positioning, vehicle-to-vehicle connectivity, and more reliable, virtually instantaneous communications crucial for industrial uses. Many companies have contributed to the drafting of 5G, but the standard reflects a shift from US and European tech to Chinese compared with 4G, the previous standard. An analysis of contributions to 3GPP specifications published in August 2019 by IHS Markit found that Chinese firms contributed approximately 59% of the standards, with Huawei accounting for most of those. The standards for 4G were led by European and American firms. The US wrote 4G, says Charles Clancy, Vice President for Intelligence Programs at MITRE, a nonprofit that manages US research projects. In the meantime, though, through government subsidies and cyber theft of competitors' intellectual property, Huawei became the global leader while nobody was watching, says Clancy, who has studied 5G security. They slowly took control of the standards groups, and China wrote 5G. Huawei declined to comment. It's hard to gauge how much China stands to gain from its role in shaping the standards, or how much the US stands to lose. Defining technical standards can give hardware makers an edge in developing products that use the standards. Huawei has also been accused of making its hardware difficult to combine with other gear. A November report from the Center for New American Security warns that 5G promises to have such broad uses that U.S. could suffer economically and militarily if it lets China get too far ahead. The competition can get tricky. However, last month, the U.S. government clarified a rule allowing U.S. companies to work with Huawei on technical standards after previous versions apparently caused U.S. firms to lessen their involvement in standard shaping. Despite the complexities, many countries are falling in line with the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo declared last week that the tide is turning against Huawei and hailed clean telcos in India, France, Australia, and South Korea, and the UK that are spurning the Chinese company's tech. On the same day, the government of Singapore chose Ericsson of Sweden and Nokia of Finland instead of Huawei to install its national 5G network. Some countries seem keen to take advantage of the division between the US and China. A day after Singapore made its choice, Japan-dominant telco NTT Docomo took a 5% stake in hardware maker NEC, and the company's outlined plans to compete globally in 5G. The Japanese government has also signed plans to push a Japanese version of the technology. 5G has inspired new coalitions among nations, including the D10, a coalition of democratic nations proposed by the UK that would collaborate on technologies like 5G as well as global supply chains. Sam Sachs, a cybersecurity policy and China digital economy fellow at New America, notes that the US is increasingly taking a more offensive approach to competition with China in areas such as artificial intelligence, chip development, and 5G by proposing more investment in chip making technology and promoting open communication standards. Yeah, this is a technology cold war, okay? There's an iron curtain in between countries that choose which tech to go with. China has a lead. They don't necessarily need the United States to be on board with this. They have their own partners that are aligned with this, and that's those of Latin America, those that are in Africa, and those that are in Central Asia. They don't really need to have that conversation with the United States anymore.
Well, and you saw, Mike, you saw that you saw that no more clearly than with Canada, right? Because Canada kind of got caught in that sort of battle for alignment, if you will, with that tech battle, with global alignment, right? And Canada was this was 2018 when the daughter of the head of Huawei was basically kidnapped, essentially, in Canada over this, right? And see, in Canada had large dealings with Huawei at one point. And when all this shit happened here, it kind of basically changed the tone of how Canada was going to be proceeding with Chinese tech going forward. So Canada was kind of put in a position where it had to basically make an alliance with somebody. They had to make a decision. So much like what you just illustrated, Mike, we saw a prime example of that in Canada in 2018 with Huawei.
Yeah. Well, yeah, keep in mind, Canada is a part of the Five Eyes. So
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna align with the US, but China's already ahead. Okay, the US is the one playing catch up, like the article is saying. So I'm of the opinion that it's already too late. It's already too late, because if you have 60% of the world using Huawei ZTE products on 5G and 4G development, and smartphone as well, Huawei smartphones are the most dominant players outside of America. Not even iPhone anymore from Apple. So this is where we are. It's a technology cold war.
Even their apps now, right? TikTok that's a Chinese developed app, is now gaining massive market position as a social media app, especially amongst the Gen Z and younger. demographic. So when you have your traditional mainstays, your Instagrams, your YouTube, your Facebook, Snapchat. I mean, hell, you don't even really hear about Snapchat anymore. And see, at one point they were the darling that went into Venice, California, and basically took over that city. And for a minute, they were trying to, make it all this the Silicon Valley of LA or some shit. But the reality is that some 2-3 years later, TikTok is the social media app, and it is also it's a Chinese developed application too. So now you have it from the social media side of things. And let's look at it, Mike, even from that standpoint for a minute. Maybe you give me your input. So now you have a lot of American-based users, right? Using an application that's Chinese, it's developed by the Chinese. Okay, so there's a lot of geolocation. There's a lot of like personal data, right? All that stuff being dumped right into this application. So we can see why there is a tech cold war.
Well, yeah, all social media apps are meant to collect data. That's their main goal.
But in the instance of TikTok though, right? And I always kind of hear about this app because it's what all the young people use, and it's not from your not an application that was developed from your traditional Silicon Valley, right? In the United States, it's not originated here. It's originated in the country of our tech rivals, basically.
Yeah, but you're going to start to see, especially with the continent. When I was over in the continent, they were already working on social media apps over there. So the problem here is that the questioning of whether or not TikTok sends personally identifiable information or sensitive information to the Chinese government. And if that's the case, China, it would be in violation of the Fourth Amendment here, which is right.
Wasn't that the fear also of like Huawei devices and their 5G devices, and pretty much wasn't this the fear that maybe perhaps was largely just being used as a cover for the fact that from an industry standpoint, like you just said a few minutes ago, China's ahead of the game, right? So what is the angle that you can take? You can take an angle of, well, we don't want their equipment here because their equipment may have the ability to spy on us and collect data and all that type of stuff. And I was just merely illustrating, much like the Huawei phones, TikTok is an app, so it's non-hardware based, right? But it's an application that is starting to take a market share in the social media industry here in the United States, and it's Chinese developed. So that's why I kind of mentioned it. I was like, okay, much like Huawei, are they going to do something about this at some point? I'm just kind of curious about it.
Well, the thing is, hardware, it's harder to detect what it's doing.
Right.
It's hard to detect that unless
because the firmware, you got to dig into the firmware to see where stuff is leaking from the software, or where it's leaking out, basically.
Yeah. And so you would have to be able to sit down and really analyze the device itself. But from a software standpoint, when you install the app on either platform and it asks for permission to access your microphone, access this level of data, this and that,
photos,
you have to agree to it. But on the Apple platform, that was not always the case. You would just install the app and that would be the end of it. And you didn't have that granularity of determining what access it would have. Unlike on Android, you had all that granularity where you can actually granularization.
Literally it's like every feature you can opt in or opt out.
Yeah, and see, and that was a difference. But in terms of what TikTok is actually doing, is collecting a lot of people's facial images and stuff like that. But people would argue that Facebook did the same exact thing.
They did the same thing, right?
people would argue that Facebook did the same exact thing.
Yep.
The loss of data with Cambridge Analytica and many
Yep.
other recent events with software developers, platform developers having access to people's, people's dormant accounts where they should not have had access to it. There's a lot of blame to be evenly
go around.
Yeah,
Right.
to go around and be distributed around. So I don't get too much involved in that because I think all social media is meant to collect data. So the less you can give them, the better. I had this conversation when I went to the continent in Kigali, what to do about Western companies, tech companies that are coming in and collecting African data and making money off of it, because that's the whole purpose of it, is monetization.
Right.
Well, you have to install data privacy laws across the continent, sweeping. Okay, you want these people's data, you have to pay for it either in in tokens or some form of cryptocurrency into a digital wallet. Okay, they have to opt in for this. Okay, you want their data for today, they can determine whether or not you have access to it. That's how you protect Africans from being exploited with this technology, because African countries do not have similar constitutions like the United States does, where you have the right to privacy and First Amendment and things like that. They don't have that. And so they're kind of stuck in a loop where, yeah, we want the Western companies to come in and create jobs and stuff like that. But
we don't want to get completely raped of resources.
Well,
right?
they're trying to avoid digital colonialism.
Exactly.
They just got out of physical colonialism from a nation state standpoint. You don't want tech companies coming in and colonizing your people because then that becomes a problem. And so Africans are very much aware of this at the millennial level, because they the fastest growing demographic over there. So they're looking at this and they're saying, yeah, we like the technology, but stop stealing our data. Leave us alone. If you're gonna take our data, then why not pay us for it? I'm of the same position that data privacy policies need to be installed, need to be drafted across every country on the continent, and have a formally
like a tech pack, like a technology pact with all like neighboring nations and shit.
Well, it should go through the AU. It should go through the AU.
Right.
The AU should be able to draft up a policy and then push it down and say this is the framework that you guys need to take.
And it's adopted by all nations in the AU.
Yeah, because in the United States we have NIST, we have different sort of we have ISO as well.
Yeah, ISO standardization. And,
we have many different bodies of organizations that we can leverage, but over on the continent you don't have that. Very confused. Even something as simple as an antivirus is kind of lost over there because they missed that part of the industrialization.
I got one quick question, dude. I know it's probably gonna sound stupid, but I'm just actually kind of curious about this. Now, metric or is measurements, right? Metric or standard, or is it a mix on the continent?
What do you mean?
Like, so for example, is it like metric measurements, like millimeter, meter, kilometer, like, right? Or is it some places is metric, some is standard, like foot inch?
It's European standard.
So it's metric. Okay.
All right, this is from Yahoo Finance. Apple rolls out free online coding course for teachers. Apple Incorporated said on Thursday it was rolling out a free online coding course for teachers while beefing up its existing school coding programs with new material. The Cupertino, California-based company, which offers coding courses under the Developing Swift and Everyone Can Code banners, said the new course is designed to supplement the need for computer science educators in the United States. The new course will help instructors build foundational knowledge to enable them to teach app development with Apple's open source programming language, Swift. We just talked about that Saturday.
Wow, yep.
Everyone Can Code courses are aimed at beginners, while its Developing Swift programs focus on advanced coders. Apple said, I think they threw the URL in there. Programs and resources for educators and students. It is also redesigning and adding resources for those existing programs. The Developing Swift series will include 4 new books that will be available in fall at no cost in Apple Books. The iPhone maker will also add a new set of books in its Everyone Can Code course that uses puzzles and games to teach Swift through its Swift Playgrounds app. Online learning has emerged as the new norm with U.S. schools and colleges shutting down since mid-March to contain the spread of the coronavirus. The trend may continue for upcoming fall semester for colleges and universities, with Harvard announcing that the 2020-21 academic year will be online. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Apple's getting in the game.
Well, Apple's always been there. They've always been a strong partner in the education sector.
Well, they have, because I remember like in high school, right? Because the state of California actually contracted with Apple, dude. Like back when I was in school, like literally all the schools in California had Apple computers at one point, right? So Apple was knee deep in education, and then there was a pivot during the 2000s, and this was kind of where Jobs really sort of actually took on the media establishment, right? He took on the media industry, bought Pixar, created devices that allowed you to play music, make your phone calls, do everything, completely changed the game, right? Now this is kind of like a pivot back to where Apple's kind of their origins, their roots, in education. So at least I can say that in California, man. Like I said, man, up literally from the time I was a kid to the time I graduated, basically all throughout school, man, all we had were Apple computers in school. So I always associated Apple early on with education before it became more of like a media production type of platform. So I don't know. I just kind of caught that, and it was like, wow, dude, they're back on that education shit.
Well, because that's their bread and butter. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
Keep in mind that 80% of the revenue comes from iPhones, and so they're not selling MacBooks and things like that at high rates where they can actually eat off of. They
damn sure ain't selling the damn towers, bro.
Well, they don't need them, right? Companies don't need them. People don't need them.
Well, they buy the towers are literally for like commercial production, like studio rigs, shit like that, rendering machines. I mean, dude, those things are they start at like $6,000. So yeah, they're not really something that's on the purview of most people.
Yeah. All right, next item on the docket is from Como News. Engineering for Kids of King County teaches STEM skills. Interesting. Science has played a large part in the coronavirus pandemic, yet 60% of U.S. employers have trouble finding qualified workers to fill jobs that require STEM knowledge, according to the Council of Foreign Relations. Jobs in STEM, which stand for science, technology, engineering, and math, are expected to grow by 17% between 2014 and 2024, according to the Bay Area Council Economic Institute. A recent government report found that 66% of U.S. fourth graders are not proficient in science and 60% aren't proficient in math. Thus, Engineering for Kids of King County aims to sharpen kids' STEM skills. The organization offers STEM-based after-school programs and summer camps for kids ages 4 to 14. The program has been teaching kids STEM skills for about 7 years. The classes focus on engineering, game design, and coding. We have a lot of stuff around coding with Scratch, which is one of the one that is very popular, said Noah Cordova, the owner of Engineering for Kids of King County. Minecraft engineering is very popular, and that's a program where the students actually learn engineering concepts while they are playing Minecraft. So they learn about kinetic energy, potential energy, and various engineering concepts like the engineering design process. Since their physical location is closed, they are offering classes online. They have a variety of real-time classes with instructors and some recorded lessons. Cordova says he sees STEM playing an even bigger role in the post-COVID economy. I think STEM is going to continue to grow in all areas. COVID in particular has really created a lot of opportunity in virtual learning opportunities. And I think it's going to create a lot of changes in industries and the way that we do work, said Cordova. So 60% are not proficient in science, man.
Bro, 60%. And, you know, with this COVID stuff and the kids being out of school and oh, I don't like where this is going in a lot of ways. So we do need tools like what this gentleman here is doing, where you're actually learning like science, applied science in games like Minecraft, where you're actually doing it. It's just not being taught in the process of playing the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think education as a service, right? When you talk about software as a service, platform as a service, I think education as a service is going to take the market by storm by next year. Right now, it's too early to really develop something that quickly. And who's going to pay for it, right? That's where the problem starts to come in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you say education as a service, like just, and not just for my clarity, for just like people who's listening, like what, give sort of like a breakdown on what that looks like.
It'll be similar to Netflix.
Okay.
You basically click on an app that will deliver education, and in a format similar to like similar with artificial intelligence, where you don't have an actual human tutor. You just have an AI an AI that would actually an AI bot, I should say, that you would actually pose a question to. It's going to know how to answer that question. You know, well, how do I get to such and such? You know, algebraic expression or something like that. It's probably going to do it all for you. Okay.
And this is, you said, and this is like I go onto, like you said, like a website, like a Netflix, right? And then each app is sort of like a like a movie, for example, right? But this is an actual subject matter or an app. I select it, and then I'm doing like the exercises.
No. What I mean in a Netflix format where you're paying like a monthly subscription for an education service that gets delivered to your TV, right? I mean, everybody watches Netflix on their TV, right? So
okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you're basically delivering the service. You're delivering education as a service, whereas Netflix offers entertainment as a service through its app. You're delivering education as a service through an app that explodes on your TV, and it has a lot more interactivity. I don't understand why Nintendo didn't get into this with the GameCube and so on and so forth. Back then, they had Mario, they had all the stuff. Even Sega, why didn't they capitalize off of Sonic the Hedgehog and things like that? They had the momentum, but these are areas where they were not, you know, the market was not favorable in a way from a pandemic standpoint, right? I mean, there was no real pandemic back then to really discuss that would actually introduce that concept. But now, you know, because those are household names, right? Mario, Sonic, and Tails and stuff like that. Luigi, they had all the necessary characters. They could have actually cornered the market, but now you have other sort of microservices popping up where you can actually, you know, no different than ordering a Uber or Lyft. You know, you can basically spin up an education program depending on what grade you're in, and you fill out the little questionnaires, you know, 4th grade, 5th grade, and whatever it is, and it will start delivering education depending on where you are. It'll probably make you go through some kind of questionnaire,
right?
A pre-screen analysis, right, to see where you are, and then it just start slowly.
That like feeds. Would that feed the algorithm? That type of information is going to feed the algorithm to sort of more tailor, you know, your learning traits and characteristics, or the level that you're at.
Yeah, because it can determine it by adaptive based training, right? So basically,
right, exactly.
The more you get right, the harder it's going to be. The less you get right, the easier it's going to have to be. I'm saying this from a pro-Black Pan-Africanist standpoint, that Black people have the ability now to control their education and not rely on public institutions. So you're talking about delivering Montessori schools as a service through an app.
Bro, this, and you know, Mike, the problem that I have with what you're saying, and it's not even a problem with what you're saying, it's a problem with what people have with what you're saying, is that when we say, okay, look, everything, we have to look at tech-based solutions, right? And then all of a sudden it becomes this whole shit where, you know, we're talking too much about, you know, trying to rely on computers and smartphones and this and this and that. But, you know, when we really start to think about the education piece as it relates, particularly as we've covered in the past, to say like young Black boys, for example, right? And what's going to be the best education methods for them. And it may be something of a Montessori-based education platform. And you know what? That may not be the most readily available institution in your neighborhood. So what's the next best alternative? On the phone or on the tablet or through the smart TV.
Yeah, you can't be a child at this point and not have access to a tablet. I mean,
you can't be a technological Luddite in 2020, bro. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, kids have access to all sorts of multi-platform technologies, right? If they don't own an Xbox, they own an iPad. If they don't own an iPad, they own a PlayStation.
But you know, man, but a lot of people, they're okay with all that shit because they may partake in it themselves, right? But when we then start to talk about using this stuff as the basis for educating our children, okay, that's when it becomes a lot of, like, you know, questions about the viability and the efficacy of it. And it's like, well, shit, you guys sure as know, you know, he sure as knows how to sit down and learn to play Madden. Why the fuck couldn't he sit down and, you know, through technology, learn some goddamn algebra?
Well, it may come down to like a leap pad from Magic Leap. Right?
Yeah.
Now you're talking about building a device that has all of the pro-Black Pan-Africanist programs in there, and you're delivering it as a service. And when they're finished with it, they send the tablet back. Okay, if you're in fifth grade, you know, maybe it might, you know, it might be out of warranty. You might have a 1-year warranty on it. Who knows what the stipulations may be? But you're basically just leasing out the device for educational purposes. Kids grow out of these sort of devices, right? You're not going to see an 8th grader using an Etch-a-Sketch. It's not going down like that.
Yeah.
And so
I would build the price of the device into the price of the education program, right? I'd build the cost of the device into that, and you slap a 1-year warranty on it.
Yeah, but who's paying for it though, right? It's who's paying for it, right? If you're trying to deliver it, there has to be like different service models, private pricing models, and things like that. That's right. That's all I'm saying. Like it has to be taken into consideration. Maybe you can get a you know, I know when I pay for like books and stuff like that that I buy. I actually my credit card would send me a statement saying that this is eligible for a tax break.
Yeah.
So it could be a variety of ways of how this goes about. It's all about you know, Black people really sitting down now and have full control over their education now. But anyways, let me go on to the next item on the docket from slate.com. Why older people really eschew technology. It's not because they can't use it.
I was just saying this.
Richard Devitt, an 86-year-old retired restaurateur living in Massachusetts, doesn't have an email account and still uses a flip phone. I honestly don't need or want them, he said, about smartphones or social media. The fact that attending church services, birthday parties, and even medical appointments now requires logging in online hasn't changed his mind. There's a widespread idea that seniors are technologically illiterate or dislike devices, but that's not necessarily the case. Instead, older adults adopt tech they find useful and resist tech they don't. In normal times, that can be problematic when it comes to filing online forms or accessing test results. But in the pandemic, when internet connectivity drives social engagement and medical care, this misconception could be deadly. Roughly 27% of Americans over 65 are not online, and understanding why is key to changing that. If companies design services and software with value for seniors, not as many older people would find themselves on the other side of the digital divide during a pandemic that could save lives. According to the Pew Research Center, 73% of people over 65 in the US use the internet, up from 14% in 2000. The older the person, the less likely she is to embrace the internet, social media, or smartphones. But those who have adopted these technologies use them a lot and learn new skills to do so. Seniors are the fastest growing online demographic, though some remain holdouts. In many of those cases, the real barrier to entry isn't technological, it's personal.
Mm-hmm.
Seniors learn new tech skills when the tech has value to them. David told me he was confident he could master Facebook or a smartphone if he wanted to. Anyone could figure it out, he said, but I don't want to spend the time to do that. The saddest part about the restaurant business, David said, was watching people come in to celebrate events, and as soon as they sat down, their phones came out. He sees as many older adults as younger ones glued to their phones, and he doesn't want to be one of them. He particularly doesn't want the pressure to reply to someone instantly multiple times a day. The pandemic doesn't make social media appealing either. Instead, David and his wife continue to have weekly phone calls with family. Lauren Stevens, a 91-year-old in Mississippi, has a passive relationship with Facebook. He accesses it to see what's going on, particularly when his granddaughter is traveling, but he wouldn't dare post anything. Stevens grasped what many social media users of all ages do not. Once you get on, you forget you're talking to millions of other people. Anyone can tune in. Many older adults have privacy concerns, and with good reason. Scammers use a variety of technologies to target older adults to such an extent that the FBI posts warnings on its website. In 2019, the Senate Committee on Aging convened hearings on fraud against veterans and a Social Security scam that cost seniors $38 million that year. While people of all ages worry about data privacy, those concerns prevent some seniors, such as Stevens, from using social media. I treasure my privacy and think about it quite a bit, said Stevens, recounting how he ordered masks online from Walmart recently and was shocked to learn the company had retained all of his personal information from when he bought a chisel there 3 years earlier. They'll sell this information so everyone knows how big of a sucker I am. Brian Knowles, a researcher who focuses on the intersection between data systems and social responsibility studies, how older adults use technology and why they do or don't use certain devices or platforms. Her findings that tech use is about choice reflects David and Stevens' experiences. Often the barrier is misalignment of values and products, said Knowles. Tech companies don't see older people as valid stakeholders. That's evident in how they fail to consider seniors' needs. Even when manufacturing products like the Jitterbug, a phone with extra big buttons, is intended for older users. However, button size doesn't dictate seniors' decisions about tech use, and such presumptions highlight Silicon Valley's bias towards youth, both in terms of shareholders and user markets. The marketing of Jitterbug seems geared toward the children or caretakers of seniors, rather than towards seniors themselves, and user reviews similarly tend to be from those children and caretakers. The people who drive tech development can't imagine what it's like to be 80, said Knowles. Misconceptions get baked into the design, build, and marketing of devices supposedly made for seniors. When older adults don't adopt them, it's easy to write them off as categorically resistant to technology. The assumption that seniors are alienated by technology, a verb Knowles avoids because of its implied passivity ignores the essence of her research. That older adults' resistance to technology is a value-based choice. Thus, many seniors resist some technologies and embrace others. Stevens uses his computer and TurboTax software to trade on the stock market and to file taxes. Apple is one of his favorite companies, and he bought himself an iPhone a year ago. But despite how handy the phone can be, it's like a tether, so he rarely uses it. When you want to do some deep thinking and not be interrupted, smartphones are no good. Some seniors, such as 77-year-old Illinois resident Margaret Cullen, have adopted new technologies to stay socially connected. Cullen has played poker with 8 other women every month since 1976. Now that they can't meet in person, they've moved their game to Zoom. All of my senior friends are anxious to learn new things. Cullen wrote in an email punctuated with emojis. The motivation to learn is particularly strong if you have grandchildren. We all initially say no, and then someone learns from their grandchild, and the feeling is, if she can do it, so can I. Cullen wrote, "It's amazing how fast my friends have learned." Even during the pandemic, many older adults remain unmotivated to cross the digital divide. The COVID-19 crisis could perpetuate the dangerous misconception that seniors who resist technology either can't or don't want to be reached. Neither is true, and that supposition could perpetuate the deadly consequences of ageism by discouraging people and corporations from investing in new and different initiatives. Noel sees the heartlessness around the lack of support for seniors and the explicit suggestion that they are expendable as a particular function of having digitized the world without designing it in a way that invites other adults to join. Ageism has turned to a victim blaming when organizations dismiss the needs of older adults. If someone can't fill in an online form to get government assistance in current crisis, or can't figure out how to get Zoom to work for a health appointment, Knowles fares this response: "Well, we should have learned how to use the internet. It's not our problem." Yeah, this is very true.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, dude, it's absolutely true. You already know what I do for a living, Mike. You you don't think I talk to my fair share of older folks? And I'll be surprised, dude, when some of these people I talk to them, they'll tell me like their age, and I'm like, "Excuse me, you're how old?" You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, yeah.
Well, the thing is, even I have trouble filling out some kind of forms because they're lengthy. If you ever had to fill out like a driver's license renewal and things like that, these sort of applications are very long and cumbersome, man. Your passport, all these things are very cumbersome. It frustrates me to use it.
Dude, I just opened up a Schwab account like a month ago. That was a 15-minute process. The forms, it was like a 15-minute form process, and some people don't. It's not really a patience thing, but sometimes the information that they're asking you don't have it readily available right there. It's a lot of things, man. And then to kind of speak to what the article was saying, I think this has to do, and you give me your thoughts on this. I think this largely has to do with a lot of how they were educated. Okay, we're educated in a different time and educated in a slightly different way than they were. So the type of learners that they essentially were basically educated to be. Okay, they don't really pursue knowledge from an inquisitive standpoint. It's more from an application standpoint, right? So if I need to do this, then I'll learn this, right? There's no aversion to learning something if I have to do it. It's just that I don't have any motivation to just do it unless I have to, right? And that's kind of what the article was indicating here. It's not like these people don't have the ability to learn. It's just that they have to kind of be put in a situation where they have to learn it, and then they'll do it.
Yeah, but my thing is, when we develop products in tech, we we make it so that the kids can learn it easily, right? It's very intuitive, but when it comes to seniors, we don't really think about it at all. And so we need to come up with a senior I guess beta test, if that can be a pilot test, because if you have a device and it's so cumbersome to learn that it even turns off, the person over 65 or even the person over 50. There's a lot of people over 50 that just don't want anything to do with any sort of advanced technology because it's just too much time, it's too cumbersome to learn. Um, we have to take into consideration when we design all tech that it's in, it's implied that it passed these sort of benchmarks with senior citizens, because if they can't use it and they're the ones with the money to buy it, who cares how fast it is, right? Who cares how shiny it is? If they can't use it out of the box, it's not useful.
I would say, and I don't know how they would feel about something like this, but like during like the setup of the device, right? If you have like an age profile, for example, is the user of this device between this age range and this age range, right? And so let's say if you are a senior and you choose like your age range, right? Then what it may do is preload a set of settings, because look, what was that senior based smartphone they called a jitterbug, I think. What's it called?
Jitterbug.
Yeah, jitterbug. I've seen those phones before. Okay, dude, it's a typical smartphone. It's the graphic interface. It's just the GUI, dude. That's all it is. It's a GUI that it's a simplified GUI, so it makes it, I guess, visually more appealing to old people. But then that's when they say that they get the reviews from usually the caretakers of said older people, and they're kind of like, dude, this phone is like barely functional, right? So I think what you would have to do is take something like an iPhone, but if you choose a certain user profile, what it does is it sort of morphs the GUI to make it more accessibility friendly to maybe like an older user. I think it's you approach it from a software standpoint. I don't really think you have to touch the hardware.
Well, the hardware needs to be touched too, because what happens here, you plug in a printer, and there's multiple steps to it. Anything after 3 steps is going to be cumbersome. Okay, you plug it in step one. Step 2, you need to go find the drivers. Okay, now you have a problem. I know Microsoft was working on a touchless-based setup in the latest version of Windows. I don't know if it ever passed or made it to final production, but basically, if it had detected a printer and it had the right code into it, it would actually go out and get the drivers and install the drivers for it.
Now AirPrint does that. Even though it does it, people are still confused by it, but it does it. That's exactly what AirPrint does.
Yeah, if you have something that really could like simplify everything, since everybody is now on it, I even looked at it with my own mom, in her, rolling into her 90s, and and she's a computer freak. So it's like getting them on the systems and making it easy for them to really, not only access, but to understand exactly how to maybe download something or set up your printer and print it. I'm doing whatever it takes. They make it more simplified. I think that is that what you guys are kind of talking about? Just making things a little simpler to use?
It needs to be piloted by seniors in order to get get the feedback necessary as to why they won't adopt some of the technologies. And the article is kind of pointing to the fact that it's time consuming in the sense that they have to, the time that they would require for them to learn it is not.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it to them unless they absolutely have to. They have a grandchild where they say, "Oh, well, now I need a webcam.
Now I need to know, because I need to talk to my grandbaby."
Right. So the urgency comes from a priority standpoint. And what's the priority? But when they do get it, can they do it on their own? Right.
Yeah.
Right. See, Apple has spent millions and millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, on understanding the user interface, okay, user experience. They are the masters at this. That's why the iPhone is so easy to work, because people they figured out how the brain works in terms of picking up devices and stuff like that, how your brain functions.
Hey, Mike, you make such a great point there, because I remember my mother, she had bought some phone that was supposed to be for seniors.
Jitterbug. We were just talking about it.
Yeah, and it was clunky, and it was very. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was like, almost like I'm pretty good at handling this stuff, and it's a little confusing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said, well, listen, since I'm over here, let me take you down to the AT&T store, and we'll get an iPhone. Well, I don't know, you have that iPhone, but I don't know. So get an iPhone. Got an iPhone, and they set this thing up for her really quickly right there, and you guys hit it right on the head. It was, because it's very simple for me to use my phone, very simple for her. So when she had to just go to contacts, when she had to go to making calls and all this, it was a very simple thing. And before, like some of her friends had it, but she had this older phone. It looked crazy, man. But it just wasn't, working for her. And then she wanted to go back to the old flip phone type of deal and just touch the numbers, because that's what she was just capable of dealing with. But she got the iPhone. It was a very simple use from there, and it made the user experience for her very easy. And I say the iPhone for seniors is probably the best phone out there, instead of these phones for seniors that they have that are very difficult to use.
And this is why I was saying, I think really the solution here is to basically just create a senior graphic user interface, right?
Not a senior graphic user interface. Well, more.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, dude. I didn't mean senior. I didn't mean that, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, the functionality has.
Yeah, I'm a senior. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, the functionality has to be simplified. There's too many drivers out there. There's too many steps to take. Yep. There's no reason why when we design products that it's not as simple as a toaster, man.
I agree with you. And why do they do that? Well, why is it? Why can't they simplify this? Because to me, it should be very simple to use.
Because there's too many different varying brands. This is what separates Apple from the rest of the companies. You got HP, you got Lenovo, you got
Canon, you got Epson.
Yeah, all of these sort of multi
their own drivers.
Companies that don't although they reach the consensus for standards, right? Standardization, a lot of their products are not as interoperable as they should be. And so what happens is somebody goes down there and they said, "Oh, I need a printer right now," and then they walk through a store and they're bombarded with all these different brands and different versions and whatnot. Okay, you have somebody that can help you choose one. You take it home, and this thing is so cumbersome to work. It's like it puts you off. And I'm bringing it up because somebody next door to me had asked for help on installing one of the latest HP printers, because they had an iPhone and they had a desktop and they wanted everything to work in sync. But in reality, none of it ever worked in sync. Okay, this thing took me probably about 90 minutes just to install. And I'm an experienced tech person. It's very cumbersome. You have to connect it to your Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi wouldn't work because it was a different spec, because there was WPA2 security involved, and you have to take the security off so that the printer could join the network. And then when the printer joined the network, you have to make it open. It was just clumsy. It was just so none of it worked as it should have. And this, if you have a senior person that walks into this, they get overwhelmed and they say, "Fuck it, I don't want anything to do with this."
There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And Mike, what senior is going to do like you did? Take 90 minutes to do that? That's an impossible task. That can't be done by a senior. It can't be done.
The instructions were useless. They didn't even work. It's so dumb. I used to work for HP. For those who don't know, I used to work for HP, and I've had. I worked during the when Meg was there in the mid 2000s, early 2000s. And I can tell you right now, we used to have shouting matches behind the scenes about product development. This is a big problem, not just with HP, but with many companies. They don't take into consideration the impact of the senior.
Wait, you worked there when or it was under the chick who basically ran the company under the ground?
I was there for well,
Fiorina?
Carly Fiorina.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her. That's her.
Yep, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, Carly and Mark. I was there for both. So what I'm saying here is they don't take these things into consideration. We have feedback surveys that we give, we used to send up, whenever there was a new product. We used to have the HP iPacks. Those things were trash because they were never really taken into consideration from a production standpoint. It was cool on paper and on display, but once you had to actually use it, they were just clumsy. They were useless. It was dumb.
You said that was the iPack?
Yeah, the HP iPack.
Okay, not to be confused with the 2-pack.
You mean Tupac? Yeah. Yeah, but they've never taken these things into consideration. So I've always been of the notion that this is not something epiphany I came about recently. I've always worked in this sector. They have to make this thing so simple that a senior citizen can pick it up, take it home, look at it, plug it in, and not have to worry about anything. We never really looked at this in the tech community. We always looked at this, well, we have to make it so that, a child can work it. Yeah, a child's going to be able to work it. Pick up an iPad and figure it out in 20 minutes. They don't have to worry about anything. But a senior citizen, they don't want to have to install an Apple ID and, do facial recognition and do biometric thumbprints. They don't want to go through all that stuff. They just want to use the damn device.
Yep.
Don't care about all that.
Bottom line, I can say that because, just me, just dealing with my mom and, going to her house and just sitting there and dealing with some of her stuff that she deals with, no question about it. And it's really tough. Like you said, she had this one phone and it was supposed to be for seniors and it was very cheap and, it was supposed to be real easy. And she's like, help me do this. I was like, let me take a look. I was like, what? I mean, it was complex just to even get to her contacts list and then to load up, they just get to her messages and it was just too crazy. I was like, your message button, and they had a message button and then there was some other crap you had to do. I couldn't believe it that they were giving this to seniors. I was like, what? So I said, nope, we're going to go to A, T's, and the T's. And let's go ahead and grab that iPhone. And, she got an older model, but I think it was a 7 or whatever, but it was very easy for her to use. And just opened it up and boom, it was real simple.
Yeah,
that's it. Just be able to go right to where you had to go, how to make a call, how do you go to your contact list, how do you do this, how do you do that? Just how do you move from one screen to the next. Very simple stuff. It's exactly what, the stuff. So the stuff you're talking about got my ears perked up because I've seen those issues with seniors, especially with people who were in their 80s, in their 90s, where they're still around, they're still kicking, and they're on this technology, and then, they're on computers and stuff. So this stuff should be made to be used very easy. And it's complex, and it is complex. And you're right about that. It should be very simple to use.
It's criminally complex, though. It's criminally complex.
Yeah.
For no other reason, like somebody else said in the chat, the 18 to 34 demographic is what they shoot for. Yeah, but what happens when you have the seniors have the money? They retired.
Yeah.
They have the money to buy, but they are reluctant to spend their money because it's too clumsy. It's just too clumsy. The lack of interoperability between devices makes it clumsy. Same thing with, these internet service providers, Verizon and Comcast and the rest of them. Yeah, you have a nice fast internet connection, but how do you connect to it? How do you get all these devices online? It's really cumbersome. I mean, now you have QR codes and stuff like that, but even a QR code is very complex for a technology challenged person to learn. And so they have to actually bring up the code. They have to get it right. If they fail more than twice, they usually give up. From my understanding in product development, usually give up at that point, and they kind of just let it sit there. That's part of the reason why Android had such a difficult time gaining adoption. It was too cumbersome. It was too many icons. too many buttons, too many steps to take. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. The screens were not as intuitive.
They literally had to clone the iPhone GUI.
Yeah, well,
when you look at an Android, you look at an iPhone, there's not that much difference at this point.
Well, I mean, the screens and stuff are all that are made and designed by most of them is Samsung and all that, and
yeah.
And then they make it for the iPhone and they make it for the Android. So they're using all this. They're pretty much using much of the same components, same stuff, But like
but I'm talking about, they wanted to emulate as much of the feel as possible, right?
Yeah.
But keep Google functionality, right?
Right.
The ability to be able to open up different Google apps and then still be able to access, or basically pipe one Gmail account into all your various Google services and all that kind of stuff. So they basically customized it for that purpose. But as far as look and feel, it's like what Mike said. When Android first started out, yeah, it was nothing like what it is now.
It was a hodgepodge of things. Even the BlackBerry, as popular as it was, you definitely need to sit down and actually analyze the device before you can actually use it. That trackball and stuff like that. Maybe if you scroll that wheel on the side of the phone a little too fast, man, you missed your target. And so those are the sort of things, man, that companies have to take into consideration. I would agree that the for Western consumption, it should have to pass a certain benchmark that it's easily accessible for all demographics, not just one demographic, but for all demographics. So they have to design it, or at least design the instructions in a way that it's legible to everybody. It shouldn't be printed in beyond third grade reader format. That's just the way it is. I mean, there's too many different variables involved in printers and scanners and webcams and even wireless mice and keyboards and stuff like that. I mean, even those things need drivers now too. This is, like I said, this is a big problem. And you're missing out on a big demographic from a company standpoint of how do you get them to adopt it. Well, if you keep ignoring them, you're gonna have that problem.
Well, the population we know is getting older, and that's certainly the case. A lot of boomers and stuff are coming into their 60s and 70s, and boomers definitely definitely got the money. They've got the money, and they got the ability to buy. So that would be very, very foolish to not to push that. That's where it is. The X's are coming right up. The X's are right behind. The X's tend to be a little bit more technically savvy, but they're definitely going to have to simplify a lot of platforms and have everything kind of work and talk together a lot easier. I know it's like you say, it's the branding, and everyone's got to have their little special angle, a little special turf. But I think people could be losing out on a lot more money because of that.
Yeah. All right, let me get to this next item on the docket from TechCrunch.com. Superstrata opens pre-orders on a pair of 3D printed bicycles. That looks pretty awesome. There's one thing I can't stop thinking about every time I look at a Superstrata, just how quickly the thing would get stolen. Just that's no knock against the bike itself. In fact, it's probably a point in its favor. If anything, it's probably just another in a long list of signs that I've been living in New York City for too long. The Superstrata Ion is a $4,000 bike, but it's not just any $4,000 bike. I likely wouldn't be writing about it if it were here. In addition to looking quite slick, the unibody bike is 3D printed from a single piece of carbon fiber material. The approach makes it possible for the company to essentially deliver a custom bike to the rider's body. And despite it seemingly hefty price tag, the Ion is still cheaper than most traditionally constructed carbon fiber bikes, which can cost as much as $12,000. There are two models being offered under the Superstrata brand. There's the aforementioned electric Ion and the Terra, a $2,800 standard bike. Neither are quite a reality yet. Both are being offered as pre-orders in Indiegogo. That looks pretty awesome too.
That shit looks dope.
Yeah. The advantage of a 3D printed bike should be pretty clear. As the company notes, it's capable of building the system to fit people from 4'7" to 7'4". One assumes that's not an exact window and more of a fun bit of symmetry, but you get the point. In all, the bike builders take 18 different measurements to create the unibody frame. That design lends an extra level of strength to the bike's frame, in spite of the fact that it weighs just under 3 pounds. Wow. The Superstrata told TechCrunch that this translates into more than 250,000 unique combinations. Once the bike is printed, a human delivers the final touches. Superstrata is not just some new bike startup. It's a brand under Arrival, the Bay Area-based additive manufacturing startup. Superstrata is meant to demonstrate Arrival's push into the manufacturing as a service and composite additive manufacturing, View told TechCrunch. To achieve this expanded focus, Arrival is building a print farm with a bunch of its systems in Vietnam, said Vu.
Fuck.
The idea is not to just print a thing and say, look what we can do. Vu said in a recent interview, let's build the entire product from the name, colors, brand, type, font, industrial design, user experience, the entire thing.
Fuck yes. Yep.
Vu is betting that future customers will be hooked once they understand and can see themselves see for themselves how quickly Superstrata was created. The entire process from the drawing board to the production-ready prototype took about 2 months, Vu said. Much of the time was spent designing the printing process that will allow for so much customization between each bike. View is also aiming for Superstrata to be a high quality product that can stand on its own, and the company leaned heavily on bike experts and designers to create both products. One of the most interesting and possibly even controversial design decisions is the lack of a seat tube. Yeah, there's a lot of showboating on that design, I have to admit, Fu said. Again, that's to show off our strength, because of course we could put a seat tube in. The whole point is we can do the entire thing carbon fiber and support massive amounts of weight.
Dude, that is the whole point of 3D manufacturing. You build you print the structural rigidity into it. You don't have to. What's the point of a seat post?
Mm-hmm. The bikes can use other wheels and components. Superstrata made this flexible because the company assumed most hardcore cyclists will strip it down to the body or fork anyways. There is one temporary upside. The price of both bikes have been reduced for early adopters through the crowdfunding campaign. The product is expected to start shipping in December.
Dude, okay, Mike, basically, so outside of the print farm component, they base the electric car, how to build an electric car live stream we did. Mm-hmm. Same thing they did. Dude, it's scaled manufacturing. That's all this is. It's scaled manufacturing. Notice they said print farm. They didn't say they didn't say a factory. They said a print farm. This is the future, folks. This is it. This is every goddamn thing we've been talking about. Shit is going to get printed on demand. Right? It's like now is the time to go ahead and just create butter-laid products and produce them. Why? Because you can print them on demand. That's why he's sitting here laughing off this notion of like, why does my bike need a seat post? I'm printing all of the structural rigidity into it. This is some next level shit. I mean, dude, I'm sitting here just looking at this and I'm like, yep, he's got it. This is it right here. And this right here is like, so when we keep talking about the fourth industrial revolution and what manufacturing and what all of these things are going to look like and what the future is going to look like in terms of the things that we'll be creating, that's it, folks. You're looking at it. And the processes, they're using them. Every fucking thing we've been saying for the last 2+ years, or 3 if you add BGS, this is it. It culminated into this right here. Look at what you're looking at right there. That's printed, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Like come on, we can't get on this shit. Like as if we can't fucking hook up. Mike, we've been sitting here talking about printers and computers just before this article, right? So what? We can't hook a fucking printer up to a computer and print something out like that and put it on the market? Are we not capable of getting involved in the fourth industrial revolution?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, we've talked about defunct malls, these big gallerias, supersized malls being turned into.
Goddamn, go ahead, Mike. Go in, dude. I already know you're about to go. Go ahead.
We've talked about this months and months ago, during the early stages of the lockdown. You know, what's going to happen to all these malls when they go defunct, they're filing for bankruptcy? What can they be repurposed to? Well, they could be repurposed into villages, you know, with shops below and condos at up to top. But or you can turn it into print farms, like we discussed before. And so the carbon fiber, based bikes and stuff like that being printed on the fly, adapted to your body and stuff like that. That's future thinking.
Man, come on, dude. And Mike, I mean, come on, bro. These are the fucking manufacturing facilities, the print farms. This is the shit we're always talking about, utilizing the space that's available in all of these black neighborhoods, on all these black communities and shit, where there's just buildings and it's just fucking space. It's just there.
We got Jay on the panel.
Yo.
What's going on, guys?
Peace,
Chilling.
I didn't really have anything to add about this this additive manufacturing for the bicycles, but I just wanted to add, based on your last article, that as an engineer, from an engineer's perspective, it's very difficult sometimes to avoid over complexity when you're designing things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's harder than designing the actual product itself. You get a bunch of guys in the room, they're like, oh, what if we add this? What if we add this? And then you start adding all these things that are unnecessary. And your product is like way too complex. Sometimes you need, like somebody to get you to focus on your requirements. Maybe even a non-engineer sometimes. And I guess Apple had that from the beginning.
Yeah. Steve Jobs was not an engineer. He's actually a programmer, if I remember correctly. And so Woz was the engineer, but the way Steve Jobs envisioned things, I think that kept Woz in focus, right? Woz didn't over-engineer the product. And so I think that's where, the combination of simplicity came from, on top of the fact that he went to Park and stole, what he stole. But
lean and efficient is what Jobs would always say. Lean and efficient.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I graduated from college, like we joked that systems engineers, like their curriculum is like way easier, but they make all the money. But this is why they come in handy.
Right.
You need a good systems engineer to keep you on track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me get to this next item on the docket. This is from RT.com. Wheelchair boarding. Man invents cool ways to get around in wheelchair.
Oh shit.
Well then,
Hell yeah.
there's one temporary upside. Anybody have any opinion on this?
I think it's dope. But that's from somebody who used to skate, so.
Yeah, I know exactly where that place is. It's right by Spalding Rehab, over there by the TD Garden. And so very interesting piece, man. I don't know if I was in chair, I'd probably be thinking of doing something like that. I fall over, man. And it could be curtains for me. So but I know they put that skateboard park right in a predominantly white area.
That's where the skate parks typically are, dude. You know, it's like I wish they would build them more in black neighborhoods. Now in LA they got them. In LA neighborhoods, like in all the black hoods, there's skate parks, bro. And a lot of there's a whole gang of like young brothers, man, that are dangerous out here on the decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, we got them. You know, we pushed for it a lot, like during the 2000s and stuff. And so when they were doing a lot of revitalization projects, they started building skate parks in the inner cities in LA.
All right, last item on the docket is from TechCrunch.com. MIT creates a soft-fingered robotic gripper that could eventually tie knots and sew stitches. Interesting. MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, CASEL, has shared the result of a new project in which it built a two-fingered robot gripper, which has soft pads for dedicated and fine manipulation of objects like cables, sheets, and more. The robot's design is based on how humans use their fingers to do things like untangle wires and tie knots. To do this, the CASEL research team equipped their robotic gripper with fingertips that are not only made out of soft material, but that also have embedded sensors which help it continually detect the position of a cable between the grippers to better control holding and manipulating them while performing simple tasks like detangling. The fingertip sensor provides high resolution tactile information using so-called the fingertip sensors provide high-resolution tactile information using so-called gel site technology that embeds tiny cameras in a soft rubber. These sensors provide data on how the cable is situated between the two fingers of the gripper and how much force is being exerted on the cable in terms of friction as it moves between the pads. This allows it to change the pose in the grip depending on what's needed to get the cable into the position you want, an approximated version of what we're doing when we work with cables or cords. The CASEL team, led by MIT postdoc student Yu Shi, was able to demonstrate the gripper following a USB cable along its length from its random starting holding position, and could also work its way down to the length of a cable with a hand-over-hand motion when working in tandem with a second gripper. In order to find the end of the cable, the system demonstrated its ability to work with different types of cables, including different materials and lengths. We can kind of watch this real quick. Castle system managed to perform a task that is very commonplace for us, but that poses a significant challenge for a robot. Plugging a set of earbuds into a phone stereo headphone jack. It may not seem like much, but it opens the door for building out technology to perform even more sophisticated tasks, including doing things like folding clothes, folding cloth, tying knots, and ultimately even potentially sewing sutures to close wounds during medical procedures. The goal, according to Shi, is to create a robot that can handle this delicate work in order to provide a safe alternative when having a human do the same would be potentially dangerous, as well as repetitive or dull. Like many robotics endeavors, you can see how creating a robot that can handle this kind of work could free up human time to focus on more complex or advanced tasks. The team intends to look at applications in the auto industry first, a good target not only because automation is already a key part of automotive manufacturing, but also because wiring and threading cables represents a significant portion of remaining manual work in car production. Man, that is something, man. Because it is true that we do feel out a cable first before we even decide to plug it in. Yeah, let's hear from Jay. I mean, this might be in his house.
Yeah, so I used to work for this company, and they had a manufacturing facility in Asia. So they manufactured like electronics, and they could never get a machine to wind transformers properly. That was always something they struggled with. Like, this is very interesting. This is gonna take away a lot of people's jobs.
Yeah, it's not. They're not that far off. I mean, if they're at this point now, they've already, they're way beyond what we're reading right now. But we've said that this was going to happen at some point. But COVID kind of sped up a lot of things. They have a lot of time on their hands to do a lot of testing. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they're talking about the automotive industry, but we know that if you automate any more of the automotive industry at this point, you're going to put just about another third of the workforce out of work.
Well, I'm thinking just consumer electronics, because a lot of it is done by hand, like the soldering, things like that, installation.
Yeah.
So I can see there's a lot of room for automation there.
It can do it with more precision, with more accuracy for a longer period of time, which all equates to what? Increased production.
Ain't no robot gonna take my job. My game is tight up in here. He might got the algorithm, but I got that game though.
I'll alpha my way through this.
Yeah. I'll make sure my headphone jack gets plugged in properly.
I'm gonna alpha my way through automation.
Yeah, that's what these guys are thinking. But when we talked about, Black men being highly impacted by automation from the McKinsey report of 2019 last year, people said, you guys selling doom and gloom. Well, what the hell do you call it?
Yeah, hey, Mike, you know what? We're selling doom and gloom. And the article previous to this one, guess what homeboy's selling? Printed electric bikes. Or no, just printed bikes though. Carbon fiber ones at that. So who's selling what?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Who's selling what? Who's gonna be the sellers of the future? You really think we're selling doom and gloom? No, we're trying to sell you on the info to get you on some shit that has this dude selling 3D printed bikes. Y'all ain't hearing this though.
In the 3D in the print farm.
Come on, man, y'all ain't hearing this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine if you use this, if they can program this to learn how to, roll a blunt. It's game over, man.
No, you went there.
It's game over. Because the ability to untie a knot and things like that. That's what this is developed for.
This thing literally is plugging in a phone, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That's how precise it is. It's more precise than that. That's a mundane task right there.
Yeah.
Right. That's it doing a mundane task. Don't you think there's more highly specialized applications for this?
I don't know. Maybe Jay might know.
Jay?
Yeah, I mean, so if you go on any production line, I've spent years in Taiwan, like, because the company I work for, we go like at least once a year. I mean, most of the tasks are still done by humans. And funny enough, it's all women because, you know, they have small hands.
Yep.
A bunch of women. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much everything in an electronic process line, you know, can be replaced by this thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know, is that an actual video or is that just a concept?
No, we played the video. We played
That's
Oh,
an
okay.
actual that's an actual arm right there. Plugging in an actual cable to an actual phone.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what kind of social upheaval this is going to cause. I mean,
man.
I mean, we've already
this is
seen
a lot of jobs.
Yeah, we've already seen. And for me, I've seen, and this may have been like, damn, an article we covered late 2018, where there's like a surgical arm that was automated, and it was like stitching up like internal flesh after like a surgical incision. Okay, and this was a robotic arm stitching up flesh. Okay, so I've already seen like a robot stitch up a surgical incision. This right here, this is manufacturing application.
Yeah.
And they'll even be picking grapes soon too.
Right, exactly.
Well, they already have that, Jay.
I was gonna say, they have this one machine. They use them out here in California near. There's actually like an almond orchard, like about maybe like about half a mile down. And so what they do, they have this machine, and there's like this trailer that's on the back of a truck, and it has this robotic arm that reaches out to the tree, clasps around it, and it shakes the shit out of it. Okay, and then, well, I was gonna say, and then there's all the almonds fall, and then there's a collector that comes out, rolls everything up, and then on to the next. Now, what they're working on is an automated version of that.
Well, the thing is, we covered an article early last year, that showed that they're using these drones, like a DJI drone, a consumer sort of drone, that can come by and basically hover and clip the fruit from a tree and put it into a basket. It's actually a functional device. So I don't know. I don't know how long they can do this for. You may not need Mexican. You may not need labor anymore coming across the border, especially if you can get. I mean, what's the cost of a drone? $100 in bulk. You're probably talking about what, 20, 30, $40 in bulk. If it can do all the same work, what do you do then?
Well, what I was thinking about is something like raspberries, for example.
Yeah,
because they're kind of like bushes that with thorns.
They're on the ground.
Fruits are very delicate, so
yeah,
you would need something very specialized to automate the picking of raspberries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, you need something. You need something with like small arms and little clasping devices.
Yep.
Right. That are pressure sensitive.
Yep, and can navigate its way through the bushes without damaging the fruit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's similar to what they're trying to do, because like I said, they have this thing where it's on the back of a pickup truck. What they'll do is just drive the truck real slow, and they'll stop, and it'll shake like 2 or 3 trees at a time, and then shake all the almonds down. There's a collector that rakes them up, right? But now they're working on an automated, it's basically just an autonomous vehicle, and so it can just do this thing 24/7. Because there's rows of almond trees, and it'll just rove around, and it'll just do these sessions where it just shakes them out.
I'm surprised they don't have a blanket under the tree to really just like grab all of the elements that's come down and then pull it in that way, rather than to scoop it up, but just actually put the blanket under it, pull it.
Oh man, I have uncles that do farm work that come from Jamaica. This is bad news. This is how guys build their houses and send their kids to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, robot tax be damned. That's how you pay for UBI.
Hey, we've been trying to tell them.
No, I mean the thing is,
dude,
you know,
wait, it sews stitches, bro. Like all your true religions.
no, that's the wrong type of situation. This is for medical application. A lot of these guys, man, they don't wear the real thing anyways. They just buy the knockoff.
That's why they'll be made by that shit right here. Oh, no, I'm joking.
No, but this is a serious issue.
No, it really is though. It really is.
Serious issue. Like I said, I went to the office a week or so ago, and they had a robot that basically pulled up on you, scanned your face and your temperature at the same time,
Did your temp?
and logged you in to the system and opened the doors for you.
Hey, do you know what? I heard something about, there was I can't remember which news bureau it was. Kenya opened back up their airports the week before last, and when they open them back up, they've got robots scanning the goddamn airports, and that's what they're doing. They have like these
We covered that.
Oh, you covered it. Okay, yeah, dude.
We covered that weeks ago. Yeah, I said that before. When I was in Qatar, when I was in Doha, they had that robot, and I had never seen it before. And they made me go through it, and I didn't understand it. But now that same robot is showing up here, and so we have it in the workplace. And it's very fast. Okay, it's very fast. By the time you put your hands by your side, it already scanned your whole body and scanned your face. Now, if you have your mask on, it will reject you and it will just take your temperature, but it won't log you in. And so I don't know where they got it from between March and now, but they apparently they trust the system. Your front desk person is no longer okay. They let one of them go already, and so this is where we are right now. All these black men who want to be concierge and security guards at stores and stuff. These robots are going to come in and basically move you out, man. I'm sorry, brother, but this is your last day. Please don't show up on Monday. We have a robot coming in. Those heavy boxes, we don't need you lifting that anymore. We have a robot to do that now. I don't know what to say about a lot of black men. When we covered the McKinsey article, the article was realistically pre-pandemic. Now you're talking a pandemic, and it changes everything.
Bro, shoot, I'm trying to remember what it's called. The report, the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. They outlined this in that report, and they said that if the country were in a situation where we really did have to wholesale change our legacy systems, okay, and by legacy systems, that is defined as pretty much anything that is pre-existing that can be wholesale replaced by something new, okay, and that's pretty much all your systems. So there's already sort of like the position paper to push a fourth industrial shift in this country, and it's backed by all of your tech companies. And this is a government sponsored report. We posted this shit maybe 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this topic really concerns me about the future, because I think in the end it'll work itself out because population growth is slowing.
Yep.
But getting rid of people don't disappear because they're not needed anymore in the economy.
No, they go drive Uber.
So I'm concerned about social upheaval until the population works itself out and balances.
Well, I mean, when you look at all of this that we're talking about, compounded with the things that we talk about on the economics live streams, right? So the things about, Congress and the Senate wrangling over stimulus packages and shit like that, right? Trying, arguing over giving people a measly $1,200 fucking bucks, $1,500 whatever the hell it is, right? Arguing, wrangling over providing this to everyone so that everyone has a means of sustenance. Meanwhile, all this goddamn stimulus money is going where? Okay.
So
then you compound it with this shit right here.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not even the first world. I'm not even worried about that. But there's no possibility of UBI in Jamaica and Haiti.
Yeah.
But automation is still going to hit those places.
It's going to hit. I mean, I'm just kind of, referencing it maybe a little closer to home. But then again, we see we're going to look, how's the impact going to be any different than it is going to be here? If we look to Jamaica and Haiti, okay, those concerns that are popping in your head are the same concerns that I have in my head domestically. I think it's going to be the concern that pretty much everyone's going to have.
Yeah, I agree. Just that, welfare system here kind of keeps people in check.
Well,
outside of, these first world countries, people start, warfare and genocide.
I would even argue with that I don't know if that's even the case here anymore, because again, one thing that I do is I follow a lot of the stimulus package updates in terms of people analyzing like what moves the government's making to try to assist people, because at the end of this month, man, there's a lot of shit that expires from that CARES Act. Okay. And I don't like where things could be headed if our government doesn't do something about this shit now. So and then this right here is just another one of those little harbingers, right? Those little signs where, just like what Mike was saying, post-COVID, he's going back into, the facility, and next, he's greeted by a goddamn robot.
No, it's during COVID. It's during COVID, right? So you're talking about phase reopening, but still.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, now, what I mean is pre-COVID, that wasn't the case, right? Post-COVID, you think that's going to change? It's going to be more commonplace. We're going to start seeing more fucking robots, dude, everywhere, in every facet, plugging in cables, checking your temperature, asking you questions, taking your order, seating you at a restaurant.
Yeah, printing your house, printing
your shit. What the fuck, dude?
Getting your fruit.
Dude. But we're fear mongering, bro. That's what we're doing, Mike. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. If you just alpha your way through it, you'll be just fine.
No, that's right though. Just alpha your way through this shit. You're good. Mm-hmm. Yep. I want to see y'all niggas alpha your way through this shit.
No, I mean, we don't need no UBIs. That's what someone told us last week.
Okay.
Black people don't need UBI. What do we need that for? Go get a job. We just looked at the numbers last month. 40 million plus people filed for unemployment. Okay. We're not even talking about the ones who are already given up on the market. You're talking another 20 million people who are just not working.
And you're also talking about the fact that those who are already receiving it under the CARES Act, it expires at the end of this month.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a re-uppance for them? Don't know.
Oh, well, this is capitalism, according to them. Big companies taking tax breaks from states and cities.
Mm-hmm.
That's capitalism. What are you talking about? That's capitalism.
Yeah, that eviction exemption also, guess what? That expires at the end of this month too.
that's competition. That's competition. And let me
Free
tell you
market
something, you
capitalism.
niggas, y'all better get a job.
Alpha your way through
Shit.
this shit.
Y'all better get a job out here. What y'all talking about?
Oh,
UBI? What the fuck is that? Something to eat? What y'all talking about?
Fucking
Get you a
government
job out
handout.
here, boy.
no, you
Got
got
Government hand.
government
Oh, you
handout.
niggas don't. No, it's because you niggas don't want to work.
Right. Trillions
You
of
know that.
goddamn dollars, trillions of goddamn dollars pumped into the economy, didn't touch your fucking hands, but you want to cry about you handouts? Somebody got handed something. Trillions of dollars.
Handouts.
It went somewhere. It went somewhere. Somebody
Handouts.
got handed some shit.
Playoffs.
But it wasn't
Playoffs.
your ass. It wasn't you. It wasn't you. But somebody got handed some shit.
Man, let me tell you something. I don't want to hear nothing about. Y'all better get up off your lazy asses. Y'all are lazy. Niggas don't want
Alpha
to
your way
work. Y'all
through
better
this shit.
you better get you a job. Shit. What you talking about out here? Tired of this niggerish ways. I'm tired of y'all.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
nah. You know, that's people are not. You know, when we read the McKinsey report last year, you know, people were like, "Well, we have alternative facts." Okay, go get your alternative facts. We're now looking at a GIF of an MIT robot that is basically planning to take your job before the next presidential election. Okay.
If it has to do this task right here 10,000 times, it is not going to fucking complain about it.
No, it's adaptive. Like somebody was saying in the chat, you know, because of machine learning, it will eventually get it right because it has to. And so, what's the outlook of a Black community that has a labor force that is largely obsolete and unnecessary for the foreseeable future? I mean, flipping houses. I mean, you know, there's a lot at stake here. There's a lot at stake. A lot of the jobs that Black men used to do 30 years ago, you have robots doing them now.
Mike, like I've always said, dude, unless you are the motherfucker wielding the goddamn robots, best of luck to you. If you're not the one wielding the software, best of luck to you. If you're not the one
Hold on. What I say?
best of
I
luck
said
to
y'all
you.
gonna be fine. Hold on a second. What you talking about over there, Complex? I said y'all gonna be fine. Don't worry about that. Y'all gonna be fine. Complex, what you talking about over there?
I'm just putting it out here, man. Because
Complex,
look,
what you talking about? You just
hey,
go tell the guys
hey.
to get a job. Go tell them to get a job. Go tell them to get a job, man. What you talking?
Yeah,
Hey.
let's go to Vision. He has his hand raised.
What's going on, Vision?
Can anybody hear him? Just me.
I think the Mzungu got him.
Yeah, no, it's give me a second here. Oh, I'll be back. I gotta do something. Sorry about that. Yeah.
All right. And so you have Tesla coming out with autopilot and Waymo tech, with their autonomous shuttles and stuff like that.
And for those of y'all who haven't been following, man, Tesla stock is through the roof. I would suggest get some because that's where I'm at right about now. But yeah, anyway, go ahead, Mike.
Stocks cold banging this week, man. Cold banging. Monday, cold banging. Oh my God. Microsoft up, Apple up, my boys is up. Okay, I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let's go to Vision. He has his hand raised.
Okay. How about now? Is it a little bit better?
We can hear you.
You sound good, man.
Don't worry, I'm not going to be long-winded or off topic. Mike, I sort of in the past I stumbled into automation just by accident. I happened to just decide to take a PLC course.
Okay.
And then took an HMI course, programmable logic controller, and then human machine interfacing. And it was just you know just decided to just check it out, right? And so that's another form of automation. But what I'm looking at here, I would have never imagined. Like this is something beyond like it's out there. And you guys have been doing this for a while, so I'm impressed. That's what I want to say. If by chance at the end I would like to share a video to just show you what I used to do, but a lab that I did. But I want to wait till you guys finish.
We're actually shutting down right now, but we'll have to do that another day. The thing is here, you know, these things can work 24/7, 365. They don't need vacations. They don't need healthcare benefits. You know,
Maintenance, man. That's it.
yeah, if they get a software update, and that's probably about the
Just
extent
an
of
update, and yeah, just make sure hydraulics are all straight. You know, the actuators are working, and yep, PLCs are all working.
these are IoT based, and so they're connected to a network. That you have a dashboard for servicing, and it will determine.
It'll let you know. Yeah, it'll let you know when one needs servicing.
Yeah, a company like PagerDuty will probably send out a dispatch, cut a ticket, you know, for the maintenance people.
Yeah, dude walks in with a box, has all the parts, right, to build a whole arm, and he just replaces what needs to be replaced, tests it. This one's okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is impressive. I'm gonna watch this video again. Like you guys are doing a great job. I can't, you know, one thing I've learned: don't preach to the choir. And to everybody in the chat room, yo, these guys are on point, man. Excellent job, guys. That's all. That's all I can say. I'm
Thanks,
out,
brother.
Yeah,
No,
I'm out of
thank
here.
you, brother. Appreciate you.
Have a good one, bro. Yeah, and so what are people going to do? Like Jay is saying, you know, he's concerned, not just for the social upheaval, but for his own relatives, you know, who may be impacted by this. This is not going to go. This is not going to be like 2040. Oh, you know, this robot won't be finished for another 20 years. No, this is going to be finished within the presidential cycle.
This I'm about to say, man. This is this next presidential cycle. There's going to be whoever like after this next presidential cycle, dude, a whole new flush round of legislation and regulations is going to sweep through Congress, and it is going to basically set the stage for this shit to basically become commonplace wholesale.
It's already setting up. This COVID has been the accelerator. It's been the accelerant. A lot of these companies, because I'm going up and down Central Avenue and a lot of places, you know, near where I am, you know, downtown Scarsdale and these other areas, these stores closed up. So these guys are not going to get caught flat-footed like this again. You guys don't understand. They're not getting caught flat-footed like this. This has been a cleaning, but those who survived, they're going to know how to deal with this again. And we're going to have a lot of automation in place, and they're on this now. Guys are not going to get caught with their, you know, sitting on their fingers, sitting on their hands. They're not going to get caught out there like that. So people have to understand this is here. It's now. It's going to be over these next 5 years. It's going to be a turnover like you're not going to believe, and it's going to be a different game. The game is already changing. COVID has turned it on. Too many people got bit in the ass. Too many people got hurt out here, and you know, we haven't seen the end of it as of yet. But by the time this thing turns around again, we're going to see a whole different face to this thing. And if a lot of people don't think that your job is going to be automated out or AI'd out, or however you want to think about it, well, you better be thinking about that. That's why, you know, we keep talking about the tech game and getting in on certain, you know, and getting in certain fields, healthcare and so forth, because these are the places that are going to fare a bit better. Not to say that everything's going to go away, but it's going to be a lot, and it's going to hit our community the hardest. You know, I'll just, you know, and we've been saying this for a while, and we know this is going to happen because we can see what's happening right now. So get on the stick now or pay for it later. That's it. If you think things are going to be smooth down the road, we're going to be okay. Beg to differ.
Well, just one point, if I can. I remember that McKinsey article. It mentioned that Black women would fare a little bit better.
Yep.
Because they are overrepresented in the healthcare field.
Yep.
But I'm thinking to myself, this robot, if it can tie knots and wind transformers, why can't it administer IVs and take blood pressure?
There's already robots that can.
I mean, that's going to increase. Healthcare is going to get hit, but it's not going to get hit as hard as some other industries are going to get hit. And, you know, yes, a lot of Black women have gotten nursing degrees and gotten into the nursing and the healthcare field and so forth, even on the administrative side, yes. And, you know, we're talking about Black men here specifically. We really need to be much more into this. Though Mike did do a live stream a while back on Black women and how automation may affect them as well, and what careers are going to be right for them as well. We did address that, but we are addressing Black men primarily here, and it's about what we're going to have to do to survive, because we're on our own. We know that, and we need to put this information out there so we have people moving forward in this thing and getting their acts together now. So when this thing comes down, it won't be a surprise.
No, I think to Jay's point about Black women faring out from this is because they have some resiliency in this area.
They're
Black men never really looked at the long-term aspect, and I would argue that it's too late. If you haven't invested in this area, if you haven't upskilled yourself in this area, what you're seeing on screen, that these are scientists doing this. Okay, these are the best of the best that's doing this. If you're not even at the academic level, it's already too late. It's already too late. By the time you finish school, this robot will be replacing someone's job. Unfortunately, a lot of brothers will be eating out of dumpsters for eating steaks and dinner for the most part.
Jesus Christ.
Well, Mike, I don't want to exactly say it's too late. I mean, because I do believe that there's always a little, a little light here. I say people should get these educations and get on top of this. And things are constantly in flux. We can't necessarily always say and predict. Though we've been correct on this. We've been correct here, and this thing actually has come down even a little faster than what many of us would have even thought, because nobody really predicted this COVID coming down the way it did and having the effects that it's having. But I suggest that we do stay the course. I do believe if you get more on the technical side of this economy and more on the technical side of these industries, you definitely are going to tend to fare somewhat better. So I'm not going to say it's 12 noon, because Mike is calling you. Mike said it's 12 noon. I say it's still about 8 to 12 or so. I don't think it's high noon yet.
8 minutes to 12.
I say 8 minutes to 12.
12:52 or no, 11:52.
Yeah, something. Well, a little sunlight, a little sun.
Wow.
But,
No, I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. These are PhDs that are doing this. These are not
Mike,
coming out of community college.
I'm not misinterpreting a thing. I'm hearing all what you're saying. I'm saying something is slightly bit different. I understand the PhDs,
a little more optimistic than you are, Mike.
Yeah,
I'm not optimistic about that at all. There is no optimism to be had, because if they're doing this at the PhD level, and you haven't even gotten in the game yet as an adult, it's almost too late. It's just too late to be talking about getting into the game now. It's 20 seconds left on the shot clock, and you're already down 10. It's too late.
Well, I look at Germany, right? I look how they have consistently trained their older workers to move into different areas, and they've been very successful at doing that. I would think that's a model or something that's been going on in Europe that's been very successful that we might want to take a closer look at as well. I don't think we're going to have a choice, but we're going to have to. But I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to debate this any longer. I'm done.
All right, shalom, everyone.